In reception, then, one of the things you need to know is, who are you writing for? Are you just writing for yourself only? You might want to just write for yourself. A diarist might write for his or herself only. Or you might just want to get something off your chest that's been bugging you. Or you might have a particular point of view that you'd like to try on and see how it feels. Maybe you'd want to use it in real life. Or maybe you just want to explore an issue for your own personal satisfaction, and organizing it as a written document is a good way to go. Or maybe you just want to re-experience something. Regardless, when you're writing for yourself, you don't have to please anybody else. Now, does that mean that no one else will be pleased? No, not necessarily. If you write for yourself, other people may be quite pleased with what you wrote if you choose to make it public. But the thing is that most people are not going to know exactly what you mean by certain things because they won't have had exactly the same experience. Some things you say will be fine, but you're going to use shorthand with yourself if you're writing just for yourself, and then if you later decide to take that and present it as a work for others to view, they may not be able to understand what you mean by referring to an incident that only you experienced. So if you want to write for an audience, then you have to consider, who is this audience? Well, the largest audience that you could be writing for other than yourself, jumping to the opposite extreme, is the world. Writing for the world. Don't even try. Why? Because when you write for the world, you're writing for so many different ethnic groups, religions, although the underlying structure is always going to be true and understandable and empathetic for every human being in all times and all places. It's one of the tenets of traditional narrative theory that the narrative itself is transportable from medium to medium and from time to time. Well, this is true of the dramatic structure. It represents the mechanism of the mind in problem solving. But the minute you bring it into story encoding, the minute you bring it into story weaving, and then bring it on into reception and turn it into something tangible in particular words that will supposedly carry that meaning, then you're going to limit yourself to certain segments of society. There will be those that will not read your language. There will be those who will not understand the cultural significance of something you might say from a storytelling standpoint. So although all of our minds are capable of exactly the same experiences, exactly the same emotions, our own culture, our own words, our own language and grammar and outlook will be different in the storytelling area. So if you're trying to write something other than just a conceptual piece where here's how the story form is arranged, the raw story form, writing for the world, that's not going to work. You might come up with something that is highly translatable, that perhaps the arrangement of dramatics is a favorite arrangement for a particular culture. Just because all story forms are equal as structures does not mean they're all equally used by every culture. Each culture will use its own. Each subculture within a culture will favor its own arrangements of the dynamics and the structure in a story form, ignoring whole areas of story form construction completely, focusing on a few stereotypical ones that are used over and over again. They support cultural expectations. Well, the most important thing, though, is to define the group for whom you are writing, so you know if you have to explain something, and you also know when you can count on certain assumed knowledge or assumed expectations on their part because of previous experience with the subject matter or the characters of the story.